and he has the image of the organization chart, and I think it's such a lovely image because he turns it into a pyramid. And of course, a pyramid is a tomb. So for him, that structure is a tomb. And he says, well, the book looks frivolous because it's got squiggles and drawings on every page, and it looks as though it's meant to look like notebook pages stuck together and so on. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in it. But what I was thinking about when you were talking about management, his alternative is he has the view of the organization structure as a little tree, and management is the stem and the roots, the trunk, and that's supporting the creativity and so on. Well, that's a huge, but that in itself is a huge shift. The question is, well, how do we make that shift? And when I engage people about this, the biggest issue is not giving up control in the abstract sense of we won't function without control. It's about giving up power.
Yeah.
We have huge salaries at the top of enormous, just inconceivably large in some cases, and now what justifies this sort of thing? Well, presumably because everything rests on our shoulders. If we went away, well, the whole, So those, I think we have practical answers to these issues of how do we change it. And my sort of glib response is we change it in the way that we share knowledge, one conversation at a time. It's not, we don't wave a magic wand, we don't create new structures. We say we want knowledge sharing to be at the center of what we do. Now, how do we support that? And I think we know in a practical way how to do that. What's more important is the issue of vested interests. And how we deal with that is like saying, well, how do you, if you don't like the president, how do you remove the president? It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, you've got servant. He should be our servant.
Well, yeah. But I'm just saying, I think as I say, just to sort of reiterate that point, the practical issues are we have plenty of interesting ideas about how to do it and creative ideas and possible to do it. But more difficult is, how do you sort of shift the status quo? And I don't have answers to that, except that one of my favorite consultants is Peter Block, who is I don't know if you know his work, his work on stewardship, his book on stewardship.
Peter Block?
Peter, B-L-O-C-K, Peter Block, yeah. And he's an iconoclast he's not at all orthodox, And he says fundamentally the way to do it is, the problem is we treat the top, I mean, this is Peter Block's words, and I probably go along, we treat the top as if they matter. And he said the thing to do is, in a way, to fly under the radar screen, if you can do it. You know what I mean? As soon as you have, he's looking at a different way of organizing in terms of leadership, shifting from a model of leadership, which is top-down, our conventional way, to stewardship, which is supporting the way we work. And he says, well, how do you do that? It's not easy to do for the same reasons that we're talking. It's not easy to share knowledge. You do that by... as soon as you have to ask permission for change, you've reinforced the status quo. Then it's top down. You know what I mean? So the practical way to do it is, the only practical way to do it then is to try to avoid having to ask permission. And that's not an easy thing to do, because I've kind of been in an academic program where we try to do things differently. And the only way you could do things differently is not to ask permission. And there's a limited scope for doing that. Sooner or later, people want to know what you're doing and why you're doing it, and so on.
Environment that works, but the business environment that does not.
Well, yeah.
I'm looking at your hierarchical concept, and I was thinking in terms of the old way in which we do things, which is a hierarchical model, stated. And I'm looking at that, but it's a progressional thinking that we go towards more like a relational model now.
Yeah.
And that's why I think sharing knowledge is going to be vested in that. It's this progression of thinking and that we have to get at that hierarchical way of thinking, and go towards a relational way of thinking.
A relational and a collaborative rather than a competitive way of doing it. Yeah.
My question, glad we said that, leads into how do we, in a business frame of mind, how do we measure that? Because bottom line results. How do I measure what we share, the knowledge we share?
Right.
Because you have to answer somebody at the top. Right? Because remember, we're thinking in terms of, well, I'm thinking, a relational model inside a hierarchical model because of the hierarchical structure, because that's how we were raised. The guy at the top is going to say,
give me the data.
How do we measure that? How do we?
And you see what the challenge is there. That what you're really doing is you're trying to put these two models together. The view from work, which says it's about collaboration, it's about relationships, and the view from the top that says it's about data. Because that's what we can see. That's how we run the organization. Not in terms of what people are doing to share knowledge or how they're working together or the networks, but it's the measurements we get. And those are two fundamentally different mindsets. Now, once you see that they're different mindsets, you say, can they be made compatible?